Okay, so looks like it's tracking this time. This is a video on the essay broadly. If some of it sounds very familiar, this is a kind of foundational video. Please hang in there and don't ignore this just because you think you know what an essay is. If nothing else, hopefully the way I present it for those of you who feel more capable or more informed in this area, uh, will find another way of thinking about writing still. First, it should be pointed out that the word essay comes from the French essayer, which means to try or an attempt at something. It's been around for centuries in that form. It's meant to be designed in its traditional form as an attempt at understanding something. So, in traditional essays or themes, there'd be this: you'd have some sort of topic you were trying to understand or concept you were trying to work through, and you would make an attempt at it, hence essay from the French to try. Nowadays, it's become a much more everything all the polished writings we have to do, the projects, those sorts of things. And so it's in modern academic writing, it's got this texture to it that links to more this perfect, polished, pristine piece of writing. And that's not really what an essay started out as. So we want to, at least in the first couple drafts of an essay, unless we're getting close to the deadline, we really want to try and see it as an attempt at understanding something, something that we're working through. And that's why having that process that I've talked about in other videos becomes really important, because you have a process that it has embedded into it this ability to discover or to try to work out or try to understand. And so you embed into your process moments where you just try and figure out what you're even talking about. And so where you don't have to have everything completely polished or pristine, and you can kind of turn off the editor. So we want to be aware that essays traditionally were supposed to be attempts to understand through writing. So writing to learn, writing to understand. As I write it on the page, I realize I think it, or that this is kind of how I'm approaching it, or I realize as I wrote it that I don't actually agree with what I'm saying because of this other thing. But if I hadn't written it down, I wouldn't have been able to process through it. So when an essay is being used as a try at something, it's an analytical process to work through um, what I know or what I struggle with connected to something. So keep that in mind. That being said, um, in academic writing, um, when people say essay or paper or something like that, they often have a single type of writing in their mind. And I'm going to break this and reinforce it at the same time. I'm sorry. But it should be noted there's not one specific type of academic writing. Academic writing is a broad category with a bunch of genres that it could be linked to based on discipline, based on course, based on individual instructor kind of spin, based on rhetorical purpose embedded into that. You may be asked to report, you may be asked to describe, you may be asked to analyze, you may be asked to evaluate, you may be asked to argue or persuade or convince. All of those are different ways into a traditional essay, and yes, there are other types of writing, though, beyond just kind of an essay or a research paper or whatever. In different disciplines, you might have specialized types of writing. So we're kind of talking about genre, and then I'm going to follow up with a video about what is an essay, what is the common structure of an essay in the humanities persuasive paper structure, or kind of if you don't have another default genre to go to because the instructor didn't say, I'll give you a model for that, even though it's more than just that. And I don't want you to get hung up. I'm just trying to set a foundation here. Okay, so that being said, um, there can be a lot of different genres in other disciplines. In psychology, it might be a case study. In anthropology or politics or sociology or history, you might do some sort of ethnography, even where you're writing about culture. In a physical sciences class, you might have a lab report, and that's usually modeled after what's called the IMRD model, which is Intro Methods Results Discussion, which was developed 150, 200 years ago, I think by Louis Pasteur, if I'm remembering my scholarship in my head. but it was designed so that scientific findings could be processed, replicated, challenged a lot more smoothly, and that scientific data and experiments could be produced and reproduced and better understood more quickly. So Louis Pasteur came up with this idea of the IMRD format that it still prevails in many of the sciences today and is built around kind of the scientific model a little bit. But that's a video for another time. I'm just at this point saying when we talk about academic writing and the essay, there's a lot of things that can influence what counts as an essay. In traditional persuasive paper context, usually in the humanities or a social science maybe, or in a philosophy class or in a speech class, these are often building off the same Greek model for a persuasive essay called the Greek or the classical oratorical form or the Greek oratory from Plato and Aristotle. Do a completely separate video on that, just like I will the IMRD at another day in time. But we need to know that there are a variety of academic writing genres, and the original purpose of an essay was to try and understand something. So we could have all these different themes or topics in all our different courses, and our goal was to try and write through and figure out how it worked. Which means if you're writing to discover, many of my students, when they first in their draft ones, draft twos, they're not sure if they're even approaching the assignment right. They're not sure about the content. That's okay. That's what an essay is supposed to be. And it's a way for you to begin wrapping your mind around what you're talking about. As it progresses, it starts shifting into the more modern version of an essay where we're kind of wanting you to start polishing and thinking through your ideas and cutting stuff out that now you know doesn't make sense or now you know isn't connected. That's why we develop a process that is making a more effective product in the long run. We develop a process that builds in both definitions. At the beginning, we use the traditional attempt definition of an essay, and as it gets closer to the end, we start polishing and cleaning up and getting rid of. But if we're not thinking about process, that doesn't always happen. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about the essay, and I feel like I took longer than I needed to, but just know that the essay is originally meant to be a try at something. It doesn't have to be perfect the first time through. In modern culture, academic culture, especially in the humanities, that idea of an essay has shifted to more of a polished, pristine paper by the end product, by the end, right? And that process is built in of trying and attempting and figuring out. However, academic writing generally can have all these different types of writing and genres and report analysis and specific ways they want you to do that. But we'll talk about genre another time. This is just what's the essay? How did it start? My next video, my next possibly set of videos, hopefully not, will be what is the essay at its base form, foundation form. If you don't have any other model, default to this. It's more than just intro, body, conclusion. And so I'll give you my version of intro, body, conclusion in the next video. I apologize for taking so long here.